Marilyn Bevans, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I hear that you are the first black woman runner to break 3 hours in the marathon. Is that true?
Yes.
First, before we get to that, tell me a little bit about where you're from and just your family background and how you got into running.
I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, born and raised in Baltimore, still proud to be a Baltimorean.
All right.
Even though we have our issues, I'm still proud to live there. I come from a family, particularly my father's side, that were runners. Now, my father and his brothers used to tell me that they had a race, and at that time it was just the color schools, as they were called. But they had a race once a year. He never told me the distance, but they used to always run that race, his brothers and himself. So I remember him saying that, and when I started getting involved in running, my father encouraged me in that regard. We went down and went to a rec center and joined the rec team for a while, and didn't have any running in high school, so I just started running in graduate school on a regular basis, just because I enjoyed the running. When graduated from Morgan State University, started jogging at Morgan and went to Springfield College in Massachusetts for graduate work right after I graduated from Morgan, and continued. And there was a hotbed of running up there even then. They had the Falmouth, they had Boston Marathon, so I just enjoyed running. And I kind of showed up at the track practice one day, and the coach Cox said, "You want to run with the team? They're doing the general 3 miles." I said, "Yes." And I kind of chased them all season, just getting a run in. But the bottom line, when I did a lot of running on my own, I had a transistor radio. I even had taken some of my Maryland marathons. I remember howling out as we ran, who had just won the race. And they said, "Oh, shut up, who cares?" But I did run for transistor radio, and now I have my MP player that I run with. And I like listening to talk shows because somebody's talking while you're running. So to this day, I run for MP3 player most of the time if I'm running alone. As a matter of fact, I've actually stopped and went and got a battery so I could run with my radio. That's more important than a whole bunch of other stuff.
Wow. What's your favorite song?
Oh, I don't have any one special song on the top of my head. I like a little bit of different things, I really do.
Okay.
But I just like running with the music. But now it's more talk shows I listen to.
More talk shows?
Yes.
Okay. Baltimore. What was the political environment like when you were growing up?
Oh, it was like all other towns. You had your colored folks and your white folks. Most of the government was, white at that time. And I remember in high school, Kirk Smoke, who became our mayor in later years, was a runner in what was called Baltimore City High School. And at that time in sports, you didn't see many women anyway. But one thing I do remember are the track meets downtown then called the Civic Center. And I used to love watching them on TV and enjoy watching people run. But we were still basically segregated. You had your black neighborhoods and your white neighborhoods, even to a certain extent now. We had just started going to different high schools outside of Dunbar and Douglas. And that was good. And when I was a young woman, that started at Morgan. We started the protests to get to go up to the shopping center and just shop and this type of thing. So we were just starting that movement as far as I'm black and I'm proud. All that was just starting. I was a little bit before that.
In 1973, ran your first marathon and came in second place. And there's a story behind that.
I know too much of a story. I do know. I just like to run. I always like to run. It had nothing to do with being overweight. I wasn't a great athlete and a lot of other things. I always said the good Lord led me to running because I popped my shoulder out or dislocated my shoulder. And it came out repeatedly. So I kind of got into the running away from maybe team sports or ball sports. But I enjoyed the running. And some kind of way I got hooked up with the Baltimore Road Runners, a group of white guys, myself, and one white lady, Marge Rosasco, and we were only two ladies out there running. And they kind of encouraged me to do the marathon. And I remember one gentleman, Joe Holland, to this day, I always never forget, he said, "Come on, Marilyn, come on, do an easy 20-mile with us." So I started going out doing the easy 20 miles with them. And we started where they started the race, the old softball and football field at Memorial Stadium. and we ran up Parent Parkway. We'd go out 10 miles and turn around. We were all back in Loch Raven Dam, up and down the hills, watching the water, which is beautiful, and coming back. And so when I did my first marathon, I was ready for it because I had some basic training with the distance, not so much the speed, but at least I had my distance under my belt, and that helped. And that first year, they had a lady come from out of town, I think Lynette Winters, I could be wrong, from another country, and she was first place.
Oh, wow.
But it was my first one. I really enjoyed it. And at that point, I didn't know about hard, easy days and how to recover, and I was banging up 10-mile days, one after the other, not even with a lot of speed work. But you didn't know a lot as far as particular training at that point. This was after college, so I didn't have a coach that guided me in that regard. And most of the time, our young, as we were called colored then, our young colored folks weren't doing a lot of distance. We were the sprinters. Anything powerful and fast, that's what we did. So I was the oddity, just like to run, and just like to run the distance. I went to camp every summer, overnight camp. We went to one of the places where you go and, like not a circus, but a big park, and it had all kinds, amusement park, all kinds of rides, and they had the bathrooms and colored and white, or the water colored and white. So I'm coming off the end of that time period. And you knew I didn't argue, I knew I was colored, was going over there. And that's just the way it was.
Wow.
So I really got that one, I don't know how much we use it anymore, but way back then, then you find that you did something well, you're a credit to your race. You would hear that.
From white people?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You're a credit to your race.
Yes. Like we didn't have a lot of credits in our race. I don't know what they were thinking, but I would hear that term. I've come a long way, what I've seen then and see now. And beyond this, every time I see a young black woman who is a doctor and a lawyer, I just want to hug them. I am so proud of them because it took a long way for us to get as far as we have gotten. We're not questioned about being a doctor or a lawyer. You can't do that. You're a female, you can't do that. You're a black woman or a colored woman, you can't do that. Or you can't be good at so-and-so because you are this. There's still some of that left. A lot in certain areas, but I'm so happy to see that as a race that we have really expanded in the professions that we are now involved.
Yeah, there needs to be, we need to see more brown, colored,
Yes.
black, African American
Yes.
people in these spaces, because people, they see and then they want to, they're
Yes.
inspired and then they want to become
Yes.
this. And that's how I feel about long distance running. I had no idea for a long time that you even existed. So because I didn't see a lot of black women doing well in long distance, I just felt like, okay, that's not for us. We must be better at the short distance, the sprints and the track running. The long distance stuff must be, you got to be born in Africa or you got to be white. And so that's what I thought for a long time. I've never heard of you in some of the running mainstream media books and magazines.
Limit weight. The
Limited.
first time I was interviewed by Runner's World, when I was at basically my peak of my running, they interviewed a couple of black runners. But when they did the article, I did not know it was about black runners. But then when the article came out, I'm talking about the black runners, because I might have added a little something probably a little bit different if that was the main subject. But it's just interesting. Like you say, we see us, but we don't see us till we start winning and doing well. Then you can't help but see us. Otherwise, it's always, when I started running, there weren't that many women running. As a matter of fact, in the first races, they had prizes for men, maybe 1 to 3, or even farther down than that. But the first woman would get an award, and that was if you weren't first, you didn't get an award.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of places for a while. So, and then also, it's so sad, back then, we didn't have the women's movement yet. So when they saw women who were athletic, then you had to be gay. You just couldn't be a female who just liked sports.
Wow.
Or you had to be attractive to be publicized. In other words, if you won the race but you weren't the pretty one, they took the picture of the pretty one for the article about the race. It was interesting how things happened then.
Yeah.
But all kinds of folks run, and all kinds of women run and run well. and they are who they are.
Yeah, a lot of that still goes on, but we can also prevent that by creating our own media and
Yes.
doing our own thing. So that's one of the reasons why I created this show. Now, your first marathon in 1973, you came in second place. And the following marathon, you came in second place. When was the first marathon that you won?
I ran and won a Maryland Marathon, and I believe I won a few. They had a Greenbelt Marathon, Beltsville Marathon it was called.
Beltsville.
And it was on some government property. And we would run around the loop. It was a loop. I forgot how many loops, but it was a loop. And one part you passed by the pig farm. And you always knew when you went by the pig farm because you could smell them. That was not thrilling when you were running. It was
No.
always, I think it was February. So I believe I won that one. I did a lot of seconds and thirds and some firsts. And as far as the dates and times, I don't remember off the top of my head. I just know I was up there, I was happy to be.
Okay. The environment back then, there was a lot of racism, things were segregated, a lot of discrimination going on. Was there ever a moment in time during your running career that you experienced racism or prejudice?
Well, they had an unofficial USA team of women, and we went to Germany to run a race in Wendell, Germany, a marathon. And I was so disappointed because I only ran a 3:10 and didn't place too high. But and that's when it's important to have coaching. And I didn't have that. It was kind of on my own. It had been good to have, other than a couple of running friends help you out, to really have some coaching. But I remember going over there and, being called the N-word during the race. And you would hear that once in a while, not too often, but I would hear that. And of course, more sexism because men did not want to see any woman in front of them, particularly a black woman. So that was a double whammy, So a lot of times you would have people say things because you were this black female out there running. It might have been quicker than them. I had one man pass me by in a race, one of the Maryland Marathon, says, the only thing you're going to see is my blankly blank butt, and smacked his tail as he ran by. And I can't remember if I beat him or not, but I know in a race, God bless me, always staying cool and calm, staying on pace in a marathon, not overdoing it too soon. So I just kept to what I was doing. A good friend of mine was running beside me. He had some choice words for him, and I'm kind of glad he didn't catch up with me anytime soon, because we realized it was just the beginning of the race, maybe 4 or 5 miles. Had a long way to go. Had no time to answer, to react. Just have to keep running and try to do the best you can.
You stuck to your strategy. You didn't let those things interfere with your running, I commend you on that. Was there ever a time where you felt discouraged and you wanted to give up running?
At the end of my career, my competitive career, I developed exercise-induced asthma. It was just new at that time, that particular type of illness. And by the time, it took years for them to recognize what it was. And Dr. Gabe Merkin, who was a dermatologist by trade, but knew a whole lot of things. He had written a running book, and I went to see him and says, Marilyn, you're wheezing right now. You have exercise-induced asthma. And it just got worse. And I guess it's because I was allergic to a lot of things, and as I got older, it got worse. And that disappointed me that nobody really knew what it was. And there was no interest in finding out, at least for a black female. And I never forget when they did find out, somebody said, all you got to do is take an inhaler, you'll be fine. That did not help me one bit. It did not do anything for me. But in those days, a lot of things we would do now, we did things differently now. The more you learn about running, about food and what to eat and what not to eat and how to mix up the training. So things changed over the years. But back then, we were just war horses. We just went out there and banged the roads and ran. And I remember somebody saying, how'd you do the times back then with the training you did then? Well, our training, you were just tough. You went out there and ran those long distances, and it helped. But my best marathon was run after doing a series of 5Ks that fall. Then I ran my best. I figured, well, they were good at, get those 5Ks and shorter distances in. But running books were just starting to come out. A lot of research hadn't been done, so you just listen to this one and that one. And this person's advice might be good for some, but not for another. And I was fortunate I really didn't get any injuries to the later part of when I got older, so I was blessed that way. But again, it's just a good common sense. Just not feeling too good, I'm not feeling good, or something's starting to hurt, let me back off, or let me go home. Let's not keep running, make it worse.
Right. How did you get into coaching?
I was in coaching way in the beginning. I was a physical education teacher for 31 years, and I started an all-girls track team. Didn't take long until we had the boys on the team. It came co-ed, and after that was more boys than girls. But the bottom line, I noticed there was not much for girls. So I started a team for girls, not for the marathon, just to run track and different events. And just so they would see that, and not only to run, but to have different experiences. I took some of my runners out to Loch Raven Dam, and one of my young men said, "Look, Miss Bevans," and I said, "Yes, that's a deer. Never seen a deer before in his life." And my club team was about running, but also about giving young kids experiences. We went to Nebraska for nationals. We went to Ohio. Get them out the city. God, they had never when remember the kids we went to Nebraska said, "I won't ever see another cornfield long as I live again." But they had experiences they might not have before, and those experiences make you stronger, make you have more confidence in yourself, so you try and do other things. My coaching with the young ones for a long time was to give our black kids experiences, how to deal with working hard, how to deal with a schedule, how to work with each other. I did coaching that way for maybe 13, 15 years. I always had my own little club team. But it got to the point, I said, out of the whole summer, I might have 1 or 2 weekends of my own. I had enough. And shortly after that, Jerry Martin invited me to come out and coach with him, with his high school team. And when I got my first check, I couldn't believe it. I was taking money for coaching. I thought I was stealing. I just felt like I was doing something dishonest because I never got paid to coach before. And I still coach to this day, and every year, and apparently there's a rumor, Coach Bevans, this is the last year. And I said, gee, they know more than me. Might be getting closer now, but I enjoy seeing kids develop. It's like an artist where you have a painting and you have this easel with nothing on it. And then all of a sudden you have this beautiful picture. Well, that's coaching, trying to have this child who can't walk and chew gum, maybe run a halfway decent mile, or be a good triple jumper or a pole vaulter, and let our young black folks particularly do more than the sprints, to see that you can run cross country. Our state meet this year, I mean to tell you, that the team that won our region, all those boys were under 17 minutes. And the first guy was under 16 minutes. All I could do is just have my mouth drop. I said, gee, I'd like to get one of those guys. But it was great to see him do that. All black guys. It was just wonderful to see. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, they had those odd names. I think they were from the motherland. So, but it's still the fact that we're able to do that. And to let our kids see that we can do that. There was a gentleman by the name of Brooks Johnson. And I'll never forget, I heard him at a coaching clinic. And he said a couple of things. One thing he said was, you can't have a nation of people, and out of all the people in that nation, only certain people can do a certain thing. He says, look how many others you're missing. So to say in Russia years ago that they couldn't have sprinters, or that in United States you can't have a black distance runner. I'm adding this on at the end of what he said for myself. And he's making you understand you have people that can do a variety of events and a variety of sports all over the world. So we can't dismiss people because whatever our prejudice is, be they female, male, even age to a certain standard, because now we have master racing. Some folks are rocking for a very long time, but they know how to look out. The guy from New England, the quarterback, he knows how to keep his body well so he can compete at a high level. So sooner or later we have to learn how to train smart and take care of our bodies.
And a lot of that has to do with food.
Yes.
You have any nutrition tips for us?
I believe we have to drink more water than most of us drink. And we probably need more vegetables and fruit. A lot of things I don't do well, but I know is important. I think we have to sit down and have our meals on a regular basis. We just can't keep running to the next fast food place. We need to sit down and eat. I remember when I was a little girl, we used to always sit at the table as a family. I had a brother then and myself and my mother and father. And later in life, my mother and father got young again, and I have a sister 15 years younger than me. But the bottom line was we ate as a family for a long period of time. My father was the better cook. My mother's 95 now, so I've been blessed on both sides with running, a little bit of running genes, and able to live a long time. Back off on the sweets and all the fast foods, and really drink that water and try to get those vegetables. My grandma used to always say, make sure you eat your vegetables. When I went off to graduate school, I would remember that in my mind. Make sure I eat some vegetables, because that's so important. And I'm not saying I have the best eating habit over the years, but as you get older, you keep learning.
Okay.
And nobody's too old not to learn. We can all still learn.
You see this picture
Yes.
right here? Do you remember that day?
I won that, it was the Maryland Marathon.
Okay.
And before they started the new Baltimore Running Festival, Baltimore Marathon, years ago in the 70s, the Baltimore Road Runners started a marathon. And it was called the Maryland Marathon, after the state. And the most interesting thing was it was very difficult. We ran 13 miles out to the dam, and we had what was called Say the Hill coming back with 6 parts of the hill. It was a very difficult course. So I got a lot of training on running tough courses. So when he started those darn pancake courses, that was a joke.
Piece of cake.
But they gave out great awards, as you see. That was the cup for the winner for males and females. We both got a cup. And I still have that cup to this day. And I've got a mother in the 90 who's 95 but still likes cleaning silver, that included.
All right.
So as you see, I was telling you prior to us talking that we didn't have running clothes back then. You just wore what you had: cotton shorts, cotton top, have a whole nice woolen hat on. It was a different time. There were no women sporting sportswear. There was no jog bra. There was no sports bra. There were no running shorts. There was none of that. No running watches, everything. I mean, they didn't even have shoes for women back then. So we wore a smaller pair of the men's shoes. And I know they had Brookside at the time and maybe Nike. Can I remember back? Maybe Tiger, those different running companies. They didn't even have the running tights. I know the man who created the running tights. So we were back there in the beginning of running distance and the whole 9 yards. So, but I did win that race. I can't remember, it was 77, and I won it. And might have been my best race. I think it might have been my best in that course was 2:51 and some change. And for a long time, I think to this day, I owe the course record on the old course, the original course, not when they started changing the course. And as you see, everything I had on, we just had to do the best we can. I remember that race because at the finish line, I was jumping up and down. I was so happy. I was so happy. I was like a little girl just jumping up. I mean, I didn't know I had that much energy to actually jump like a basketball player. And the gentleman took me to the side afterwards, an Afro-American, and he said to me, I saw you jumping up and down like a little girl. You shouldn't have did that. And I never answered him back because I learned over the years, you don't answer people when they ask you questions, particularly when they're angry and it's all negative. It's not going to mean anything. And all they remember is Marilyn Bevans said. And they might not go back to what was said first for Marilyn Bevans to say what I said. So I learned very early, just keep your mouth shut, have a nice day, and walk off. And let it be like that. Then it's nothing. They'll have to make up their own scenario. I'm not giving anything to add. And I found that was best for me to do. But I remember I was so happy because I had won the race.
Now this is a very popular picture. When I Google you, this picture comes up. And it's also a picture that is engraved in this Hall of Fame medal from the National Black Marathoners Association.
Yes, they started another marathon in Baltimore, and it's called the Baltimore Marathon. And the Black Marathon Association was in town this past year, 2018, for the race. And all the members of the Black Marathon Association who finished the marathon got the medal. The picture is from a newspaper clipping years and years ago. And at that time, a little bit different now, the local papers did cover the marathon. They covered the regular races. So I got my picture of the paper slide. Was a little bit of notoriety. Yes, back then. So that was kind of nice because, again, you did see the track meet on TV from the Civic Center and that type of thing. So it was a little bit more publicity than now as far as the running. And that's where this particular picture is from, is they had interviewed me for the Sun papers. And as you see, you're running with whatever you could wear. That's an old nylon jacket and some shorts. That's all you had. That's what you wore.
I was trying to figure out which shoes those kind of look like Adidas. Did they have Adidas back then? Or was that Tiger?
I think, I can't remember. I'm not even going to say.
Converse.
Well, it was Tiger back then, I believe. Again, I remember Tiger, and I remember Nike. But again, whatever they had, you found something that would fit you. Even the socks, nothing.
And your hair looked great all the time.
Not really. Not really. I have very soft hair, so. It's amazing, though. Over the years, people see the pictures, and I had one person come up to me and couldn't understand why I cut my hair. Why didn't you keep that pretty long hair? As a physical education teacher, we were outside for a great part of the year. We're outside in the fall. We stay outside in some locations I've worked. We stayed outside to Thanksgiving. And then then you went back outside in the spring early. As a coach, it got even worse. Out there all the time, sometimes the track meet us run in the rain or it's damp. So it was easy for me to keep my hair short, being that it was soft, to keep some type of style, then keep it long. And that was the reason why. And it's amazing how people come to you with all kinds of interesting things they want you to do, not understand why you did what you did.
Thank you, and I hope that this is the first of many times we meet and do something like this again.
All right, then.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming all the way from Baltimore today to do this show. We really appreciate you.
And thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I want to thank you for letting us bring you up to speed at Conversation Pace.